The Great Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as Commander Zixara stepped through the massive doors. Her black shell-like skin gleamed under the bright lights, and her 6 red eyes scanned the room with cold intelligence. Every being in the chamber felt their hearts race with fear. Some tried to hide behind their seats, others simply froze in terror. Zixara was a Nethys, and the Nethys were the most feared species in the known galaxy. She walked slowly toward the center of the hall, her clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. With each step, the temperature seemed to drop. The air itself felt heavy and dangerous. Representatives from hundreds of worlds watched her approach, their faces pale with worry. The Galactic Council had seen many powerful species over the centuries. They had dealt with warlike races, advanced civilizations, and ancient beings with incredible technology. But none had ever struck fear into their hearts like the Nethys. For 300 years, Zixara's people had been unstoppable. They could walk through solid walls as if they were made of air. They could drain the life from any living thing with just a touch. When they were hurt, their bodies healed almost instantly. They seemed impossible to kill. In all that time, no army had ever defeated them. No defense had ever stopped them. No species had ever made them retreat. Zixara stopped in the center of the hall and looked around the room. Her voice was deep and cold when she spoke. "Council members," she said, "I come here today with a simple message. The Nethys Empire requires 3 star systems for our expansion: the Kepler sector, the Vega colonies, and the Centauri trade routes. You have 7 solar cycles to remove all current inhabitants and turn control over to us." The head of the council, an elderly being called Chairman Vort, tried to keep his voice steady. His blue skin had turned almost white with fear, but he managed to speak. "Commander Zixara," he said, "surely we can discuss this matter. Perhaps we can find other systems that would meet your needs without displacing so many innocent people." Zixara's laugh was like the sound of metal scraping against stone. It made everyone in the room shiver. "There is nothing to discuss," she replied. "This is not a request. This is an order. We have chosen these systems because they serve our purposes. The fate of their current inhabitants is of no concern to us." She raised one clawed hand, and suddenly her entire body began to shimmer. In seconds, she became transparent, like a ghost. Then she walked straight through the heavy council table as if it was not there at all. The demonstration sent waves of panic through the watching crowd. "As you can see," Zixara continued, now solid again, "your walls and defenses mean nothing to us. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your soldiers cannot stop us. Surrender is your only option." Chairman Vort looked around at his fellow council members. Their faces told the same story: fear, desperation, the knowledge that they had no choice. Zixara had good reason to be confident. Just 3 months ago, she had personally conquered the world of Kepler 442b. The planet had been protected by a massive defense force. 50,000 trained soldiers with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. She remembered that battle well. She had arrived alone, walking through their energy shields as if they were made of light. Their plasma cannons fired uselessly through her transparent form. Their force fields could not contain her. One by one, she had touched each soldier. In seconds, their strength had flowed into her body while they fell to the ground, too weak to move. Their generals had begged for mercy. Their leaders had offered her anything she wanted, but mercy was not something the Nethys understood. They took what they needed and left behind only empty worlds and broken spirits. We understand your position," Chairman Vort said finally. "But there is one matter we must mention. There is a new species that has recently joined our galactic community. They have achieved faster-than-light travel and have begun exploring beyond their home system." Zixara's red eyes narrowed with interest. "Another species to conquer. This pleases me. What are they called?" "They call themselves humans," the chairman replied. "They come from a small blue world called Earth in the Sol system. We We sent them notice of your requirements, but they have refused to acknowledge Nethys authority over their territory. For a moment, Zixara was surprised. It had been over a century since any species had dared to refuse a Nethys demand. Most races surrendered the moment they learned of Nethys' existence. They refused? She asked, her voice growing even colder. Yes, Commander. Their response was quite unusual. They simply said they would be happy to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchanges, but they do not recognize any claims of authority over their solar system. Zixara's laughter filled the hall again, but this time it carried a note of cruel amusement. How refreshing, she said. It has been so long since I encountered a species with such foolish bravery. They will serve as an excellent example to the rest of the galaxy. She turned to face the entire council, her 6 eyes glowing brighter with excitement. I will deal with these humans personally, she announced. When I am finished with their world, every species in the galaxy will remember. What happens to those who dare to defy the Nethys Empire? Their planet will become a monument to our power. Chairman Vort felt a chill run through his body. He had seen what Zixara could do to entire worlds. The humans had no idea what was coming for them. Commander, he said quietly, perhaps a diplomatic solution could be reached. These humans are new to galactic politics. They may not understand the full situation. Zixara turned back to him, and her stare made him wish he had stayed silent. Understanding comes through experience, she said. They will learn about Nethys power the same way every other species has learned, through conquest and defeat. She began walking back toward the exit, her footsteps echoing through the silent hall. Prepare your evacuation orders for the 3 systems I have claimed, she called over her shoulder. I will return in 1 solar cycle to take possession of them. By then, the humans will no longer be a concern for anyone. As the great doors closed behind her, the council chamber remained silent for several long minutes. Finally, Chairman Vort spoke in a whisper. May the universe help those poor humans, he said. They have no idea what terror is about to descend upon their world. Outside the chamber, Zixara smiled as she made her way back to her ship. Soon, she would add another victory to her long list of conquests. Soon the galaxy would once again tremble at the mention of her name. The humans would learn what every other species had learned before them. Resistance was futile. The Nethys always won always. The massive Nethys dreadnought appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark shadow against the stars. The ship was 3 kilometers long and covered in sharp angles that made it look like a giant weapon. Its black metal surface seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Commander Zixara stood on the bridge, looking out at the small blue planet ahead. She had expected to find panic by now. Usually, when her ship arrived in a new system, she would see cargo vessels fleeing in all directions. Military ships would scramble to form desperate defensive lines. Planetary governments would flood the communication channels with pleas for mercy. But the space around Earth was strangely calm. Ships continued their normal routes. Space stations kept working as if nothing had changed. It was almost as if the humans had not noticed her arrival at all. Communications officer, Zixara said to one of her crew members, are you certain they have detected our presence? The young Nethys warrior checked his instruments carefully. Yes, Commander. Their sensors have been scanning us since we entered the system. They know we are here. Zixara frowned. This was not the response she had expected. Perhaps these humans were simply too primitive to understand the danger they were in. She would need to make her intentions clear. Open a communication channel, she ordered. Let me speak directly to their leaders. Within minutes, a signal came from the planet below. But instead of the terrified pleas she expected to hear, a calm female voice filled the bridge. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiance. We've been monitoring your approach, and we're curious about your visit to our system. Would you like to meet for a peaceful discussion? Zixara stared at the communication device in surprise. The human had spoken as if she was greeting a friend, not facing the most feared species in the galaxy. There was no fear in her voice, no panic, just simple, honest curiosity. "Human," Zixara replied, her voice carrying its usual cold threat. "I am Commander Zixara of the Nethys Empire. Your species has been selected for conquest. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." There was a pause, and then Captain Chen responded with what sounded almost like amusement in her voice. "Well, that's quite an introduction, Commander. I appreciate the directness. But before we discuss anything as serious as conquest, wouldn't it be better if we met face to face? I find that most problems can be solved with good communication and a cup of coffee." Zixara looked around at her crew members. They were all staring at the communications device with the same confused expression she felt. Coffee? This human wanted to serve her coffee? In 300 years of conquest? No species had ever responded to a Nethys threat by offering refreshments. "You do not seem to understand the situation," Zixara said slowly. "I am here to take your world. Your species will either submit or be destroyed. These are your only options." "I understand your position," Captain Chen replied calmly. "But I'd still like to meet you in person. There's a neutral space station at the edge of our system. Station Harmony. Would you be willing to dock there for a discussion? I promise the coffee is excellent, and I'm genuinely curious to learn about your people." Zixara felt something she had never experienced before. Confusion mixed with a strange kind of curiosity. Every other species had either fled in terror or attacked in desperation. None had ever invited her to sit down for a friendly chat. Perhaps this was some kind of trap. Maybe the humans were more clever than they appeared, or maybe they were simply too stupid to understand what was happening to them. Either way, Zixara decided she wanted to see this strange human for herself. "Very well," she said. "I will meet with you on this station, but do not mistake this for negotiation. I am simply curious to see what kind of beings you are before I destroy you." "Understood, Commander. I'll see you in 2 hours. Station Harmony. Docking Bay 7. And Commander, welcome to our neighborhood." The communication ended, leaving Zixara staring at empty space. Welcome to their neighborhood? These humans grew stranger by the minute. 2 hours later, Zixara's smaller transport ship docked at Station Harmony. The station was a simple metal structure, built for meetings between different species. As she walked through the airlock, she prepared herself for the usual reaction. Most beings would scream or faint when they saw her for the first time. But Captain Sarah Chen was waiting for her with a smile. Chen was a human female, shorter than Zixara, and covered in soft pink skin, instead of a hard black shell. Her hair was dark and tied back in a simple style. She wore a blue uniform with several metal badges on it. Most importantly, her face showed no fear at all. "Commander Zixara," Chen said, stepping forward with her hand extended. "It's an honor to meet you. I'm Captain Sarah Chen. Thank you for coming." Zixara stared at the extended hand. In her experience, other species usually kept as much distance as possible between themselves and a Nethys warrior. This human was actually trying to get closer. "You are not afraid," Zixara observed. Chen smiled. "Should I be? You're certainly impressive, but fear doesn't help anyone think clearly. Please sit down. I've prepared some coffee and I'm curious to hear about your journey here." She gestured to a small table where 2 cups were waiting. Steam rose from both of them, carrying a pleasant smell that Zixara had never encountered before. Slowly, still trying to understand this strange situation, Zixara sat down across from the human. Chen poured the coffee and pushed 1 cup toward her guest. "I've been reading about your species," Chen continued conversationally. "The reports from the Galactic Council are quite interesting. You can phase through solid matter, correct? And your regenerative abilities are remarkable. From an evolutionary standpoint, your people must have developed in a very challenging environment. Zixara picked up the cup, surprised to find that the warm liquid inside actually smelled appealing. You study us? Of course, Chen replied, sipping her own coffee. When we heard about your people, our scientists were fascinated. We've never encountered a species with your particular abilities. The energy requirements alone for matter phasing must be enormous. How do your bodies generate that much power? No one had ever asked Zixara about the science behind her abilities. Usually, other species were too terrified to think about anything except survival. Our bodies convert fear energy into usable power, she found herself explaining. The terror of other beings feeds our strength. Fascinating, Chen said, making notes on a small device. So you've developed a symbiotic relationship with the emotional states of other species. That's actually quite elegant from a survival perspective. Zixara set down her cup and stared at this impossible human. You speak of our methods of conquest, as if they were interesting. Chen looked up from her notes with genuine curiosity in her eyes. Well, they are interesting. Every species develops according to their environment and needs. Your people clearly evolved to be incredibly effective survivors. That's worthy of respect, even if we might have different approaches to interacting with other civilizations. Different approaches? Zixara repeated. On Earth, we've learned that diversity makes us stronger, Chen explained. We have many different cultures, languages, and ways of thinking. Instead of one group conquering all the others, we've found that cooperation usually works better than domination. We make mistakes sometimes, but we keep trying to improve. Zixara felt her mind spinning. This human was discussing conquest and cooperation as if they were simply different choices on a menu. She showed no fear, no anger, no desperation, just calm scientific interest. For the first time in 4 centuries of life, Commander Zixara had no idea what to do next. Zixara sat in silence for several minutes, watching Captain Chen write notes in her small device. The human seemed completely comfortable, as if having coffee with the galaxy's most feared predator was perfectly normal. Finally, Zixara spoke. I do not understand you, human. Every species in the galaxy fears my people. They beg for mercy or attack in desperation. You offer me coffee and ask questions about science. Chen looked up with a gentle smile. Would you prefer that I be afraid? Would that make this conversation easier for you? It would make it more familiar, Zixara admitted. Fear is something I understand. Your curiosity confuses me. Well, let me share something with you that might help explain our response, Chen said. She activated a holographic display above the table. Images began to appear in the air between them. The first image showed a massive creature with huge teeth and claws, much larger than any human. This is a Tyrannosaurus Rex, Chen explained. It lived on Earth millions of years ago, 40 feet long, 7 tons of pure predator. Our ancestors were tiny compared to this creature. The image changed to show a giant shark swimming through dark water. This is a megalodon, 60 feet of teeth and muscle. It could bite a small ship in half. More images followed. Enormous bears with claws like swords, poisonous spiders the size of dinner plates, snakes that could swallow a human whole. Our world has always been full of creatures that could kill us easily, Chen continued. We survived not by being stronger or faster, but by being smarter. We learned to study our enemies, understand them, and find ways to live alongside them or avoid them entirely. Zixara studied the images with growing interest. These creatures no longer threaten you? Some are extinct, but many still exist, Chen replied. We've learned to coexist with most of them. The key is understanding what they need and why they behave as they do. Fear without understanding leads to panic. Understanding without fear leads to solutions. She changed the display to show charts and graphs. When we learned about your people through long-range observations and intercepted communications, our response wasn't to build bigger weapons or evacuate our planets. Instead, We did what humans do best. We studied. The charts showed detailed biological analyses of Nethys physiology, behavioral patterns, historical records of their conquests, cultural observations. We noticed something very interesting about your species, Chen said, highlighting a particular section of data. In every single conflict, your people only attack civilizations that show fear. We couldn't find a single recorded instance of Nethys aggression against beings who didn't display terror responses. Zixara felt her body go cold. No other species had ever made this connection. The humans had discovered something that the Nethys themselves barely understood. That's impossible, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Chen leaned forward, her eyes bright with scientific excitement. Is it? Think about it, Commander. Your people convert fear into energy. But what happens when there's no fear to convert? What happens when you encounter beings who see you as fascinating rather than terrifying? Zixara's mind raced. She thought back through centuries of conquest. Every battle, every victory, every species that had fallen before her people. In every single case, the enemy had been paralyzed by terror before the first Nethys warrior even raised a weapon. But she couldn't attack this human. Even now, sitting across from Chen, she felt no surge of power, no energy flowing into her body, no strength building in her muscles. You cannot harm those who do not fear you, Chen said gently. It's not just a behavioral choice. It's a biological limitation. Your people's entire evolutionary development is based on fear as a trigger mechanism. How could you possibly know this? Zixara demanded, though she already knew the answer was correct. Chen smiled. Because we've faced creatures just like you throughout our evolution. On Earth, we have predators that can only hunt prey that runs. They're triggered by the fear response, by the act of fleeing. When potential prey stands still and shows no fear, these predators often become confused and lose interest. She called up another image showing a human standing calmly, while a large predatory animal circled nearby. We learned early in our development that panic makes us stupid. Fear gives us useful information about danger, but terror makes us easy targets. Zixara stared at the display, her worldview crumbling around her. But my people are the strongest in the galaxy. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. Against species that were already defeated by their own fear, Chen pointed out. You never actually had to fight them. They surrendered before the battle even began. Your reputation did most of the work for you. The truth hit Zixara like a physical blow. For centuries, the Nethys had believed themselves to be unstoppable warriors, but in reality, they were more like hunters who had only ever faced prey that was too frightened to think clearly. What does this mean? She asked quietly. Chen stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth. The blue planet turned slowly in space, peaceful and beautiful. It means your people have been prisoners of your own success. You've spent so long being feared that you've never had the chance to be anything else. She turned back to Zixara with compassion in her eyes. On Earth, we have a saying, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Your people became very good at inspiring fear, so fear became your solution to every problem. But there are other ways to interact with the universe. Zixara joined her at the window. Looking down at Earth, she felt something she had never experienced before. Not the rush of power that came from others' terror, but a quiet curiosity about what lay beneath those swirling clouds. Your planet shows no signs of military preparation, she observed. You are not even trying to defend against us. We don't need to defend against you, Chen replied. We need to understand you. Every species has something valuable to offer. Your people have survived for millennia, developed incredible abilities, and built a vast empire. Those are remarkable achievements, but imagine what you could accomplish if you didn't have to rely on fear to interact with others. Chen returned to the table and pulled up new displays. These showed human cities, art, music, scientific discoveries, and space exploration. "This is what we've built through cooperation instead of conquest," she explained. "We're not perfect. We still have conflicts and make mistakes, but we've learned that diversity makes us stronger. Different perspectives help us solve problems we could never solve alone." Zixara studied the images of human civilization. She saw beings of different colors and sizes working together. She saw art that was beautiful rather than threatening. She saw technology designed to explore and create rather than conquer and destroy. "You're suggesting that my people could cooperate with others?" she asked, the concept feeling foreign in her mouth. "I'm suggesting that you have a choice," Chen replied. "You can continue being the galaxy's most feared species, isolated and dependent on others' terror for your strength. Or you can discover what it's like to be respected, understood, and valued for who you are, rather than how frightening you appear." Zixara looked down at her clawed hands. For 400 years, these hands had been instruments of conquest. But suddenly, she wondered what it would be like to use them for something else, something better. "I need to think about this," she said finally. Chen nodded. "Of course, this is a lot to process. But Commander, I want you to know that whatever you decide, you're welcome in our space. Not as a conqueror, but as a visitor. As a friend, if you're interested." As Zixara prepared to leave the station, she realized that for the first time in her long life, she wasn't sure what her next move should be. The certainty that had driven her for centuries was gone, replaced by something entirely new. Questions, possibilities, hope. And for the first time in 400 years, she wasn't afraid of what came next. Zixara returned to her ship in complete silence. Her crew watched nervously as she walked through the corridors without giving any orders. Usually, after meeting with a new species, she would immediately begin planning their conquest. But now, she simply stood on the bridge, staring out at the blue planet below. "Commander," her second-in-command asked carefully, "shall we begin the attack?" Zixara turned to look at him. For the first time, she noticed the fear in his eyes. Not fear of the humans, but fear of disappointing her. Fear of making a mistake. She had never realized how much her own people lived in terror of her anger. "Not yet," she said quietly. "I need to observe these humans more closely first." Her crew exchanged confused glances but obeyed. They moved the ship to a safe distance and began monitoring human communications and activities. What Zixara saw over the following days amazed her. Instead of preparing for war, the humans had begun sending cultural transmissions to her ship. Music filled the communication channels. Art displays showed beautiful creations from across their world. Scientists shared their latest discoveries about space, medicine, and technology. Most surprisingly, children had begun drawing pictures specifically for her. Zixara found herself studying these drawings for hours. They showed her species not as terrifying monsters, but as interesting alien friends. One picture showed a small human child holding hands with a Nethys warrior under a rainbow. Another depicted Nethys and humans exploring space together in the same ship. "How do they see us this way?" she wondered aloud. Her communications officer looked up from his station. "Commander, we're receiving thousands of messages from human children. They want to know if we have families. They're asking about our home world. They want to know if we like music and art." Zixara read through message after message. The questions were innocent and curious. No human child seemed afraid of her people. Instead, they were excited about meeting real aliens. One message particularly caught her attention. It was from a young human named Emma, age 7. "Dear space friends," the message read, "my teacher told us you can walk through walls. That's so cool. Can you teach us how to do it? We want to be friends and learn about your planet. Do you have kids like us? What games do you play? Love, Emma." Zixara stared at the message for a long time. In her 4 centuries of life, no being had ever asked her about games or friendships. The concept seemed impossible, yet somehow appealing. She began monitoring human scientific discussions about her species. Instead of fear, she found genuine excitement. Human researchers were publishing papers with titles like The Fascinating, Biology of Phase-Shifting Beings and Theoretical Applications of Nethys Technology in Medical Science. One scientist had even suggested that Nethys abilities could help human doctors perform surgery without invasive procedures. Another proposed that their regeneration techniques might help cure human diseases. They weren't studying her people to find weaknesses. They were looking for ways to learn and benefit together. Days passed, and Zixara found herself unable to give the order to attack. Every time she considered destroying the planet below, she thought about Emma's innocent questions and the scientists' excited discussions. Her crew grew more confused with each passing day. Some whispered that their commander had grown weak. Others worried that the humans had somehow cast a spell on her. But Zixara was experiencing something entirely different. She was learning what it felt like to be seen as something other than a source of terror. On the 5th day, she received a personal message from Captain Chen. "Commander Zixara," the message began, "I hope you're finding your observations interesting. I wanted to share something with you that I think you'll appreciate." The message included a video showing human children in classrooms around the world. They were learning about different alien species, including the Nethys. But instead of being taught to fear them, the children were learning about Nethys culture, abilities, and achievements. "We've added your people to our educational programs," Chen's voice continued. "Our children are growing up knowing that the universe is full of different kinds of beings, each with their own unique gifts. They're not afraid because they understand. That different doesn't mean dangerous." The video showed children asking their teachers questions about Nethys biology, drawing pictures of phase-shifting abilities, and even writing stories about friendly adventures with alien companions. Zixara felt something break open inside her chest. It was a feeling she couldn't name because she had never experienced it before. Later, she would learn that humans called it wonder. She made a decision that would have seemed impossible just days earlier. She opened a communication channel to Earth. "Captain Chen," she said when the human's face appeared on her screen, "I would like to continue our conversation." Chen smiled warmly. "I was hoping you'd call. What would you like to discuss?" "These messages from your children," Zixara began, "they ask about our families and our games. These are not concepts my people understand. We do not have leisure activities." "That's interesting," Chen replied. "What do your people do when you're not engaged in conquest?" Zixara thought about the question. "We prepare for the next conquest. We maintain our ships and weapons. We study potential targets. That is all." "That sounds lonely," Chen observed gently. The word hit Zixara like a revelation. Lonely. Yes, that described the empty feeling she had carried for centuries without understanding what it was. "My people live alone," she admitted. "We do not form connections with others. Connection requires trust, and trust requires the absence of fear." "But you're talking to me now," Chen pointed out. "That's a connection." Zixara considered this. She was indeed sharing thoughts and feelings with this human in a way she had never done with anyone before. It felt strange, but not unpleasant. "Your children's questions about our families," she continued. "We do not have families as you understand them. Young Nethys are raised in groups by the strongest warriors. There is no affection involved. Would you like to see how human families work?" Chen asked. Over the following hours, Chen shared videos of human families, parents playing with children, siblings helping each other, grandparents telling stories, groups of friends laughing together and supporting each other through difficult times. Zixara watched these displays with growing fascination. She had never seen beings choose to spend time together simply for enjoyment. The concept of doing something just because it brought happiness seemed revolutionary. These humans help each other even when they gain nothing from it, she noted to her crew. It seems inefficient, Commander, her second-in-command replied. But Zixara wasn't sure it was inefficient. The humans in the videos seemed stronger somehow. Not physically, but in some other way she couldn't quite define. That night, alone, in her quarters, Zixara found herself wondering what her life might have been like if she had grown up in a human family. Would she have learned to laugh like the children in the videos? Would she have had someone to share her thoughts with besides subordinates who feared her? For the first time in her 400 years, she began to imagine a different kind of existence. Not one based on conquest and fear, but on the strange human concepts of friendship, cooperation, and mutual support. The idea terrified and excited her in equal measure. When the Galactic Council contacted her the next day, demanding to know why Earth hadn't been conquered yet, Zixara found herself making excuses. "The humans are more complex than expected," she reported. "Further study is required before we can proceed effectively." It wasn't entirely a lie. The humans were indeed more complex than she had expected. But as she spoke the words, she realized she wasn't planning to conquer them at all. She was planning to understand them, and perhaps, impossible as it seemed, to join them. 3 weeks after her first meeting with Captain Chen, Zixara made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. She sent an official message to Earth's government, becoming the first Nethys in recorded history to request a diplomatic meeting instead of demanding surrender. The meeting was arranged to take place on Luna, Earth's moon. Representatives from multiple human nations gathered in a specially built conference facility. The room had been designed to accommodate beings of different sizes and environmental needs. When Zixara arrived, she noticed something remarkable. None of the humans in the room showed fear. Some seemed nervous, which was natural when meeting any new species, but there was no terror in their eyes. Instead, she saw curiosity, hope, and genuine interest. Captain Chen stood to greet her as she entered. "Commander Zixara, welcome to Luna. Thank you for coming. I'd like you to meet Dr. Sarah Martinez, our lead xenobiologist, Ambassador James Wright from the United Nations, and Dr. Kenji Tanaka, our chief technology advisor." Each human stepped forward to shake her hand, just as Chen had done weeks earlier. Zixara found herself amazed by their courage. Even knowing that she couldn't harm those who didn't fear her, their willingness to make physical contact showed a level of trust she had never experienced. "Commander," Ambassador Wright said, "we're honored by your request for diplomatic talks. This is truly a historic moment for both our species." Zixara looked around the room at the assembled humans. Scientists, diplomats, military officers, and even some of the children who had sent her drawings. All of them looked at her with interest rather than terror. "I must confess," she began, "this is entirely new territory for me. My people have never engaged in diplomacy before. We have only known conquest." Dr. Martinez smiled encouragingly. "That's perfectly understandable, Commander. Every species develops according to their environment and experiences. The wonderful thing about first contact is that it opens up entirely new possibilities for everyone involved." Captain Chen activated a holographic display showing images from both Earth and various Nethys worlds. "We've been thinking about how our species might work together. Your people have incredible abilities that could benefit the galaxy in ways beyond conquest." The display showed theoretical applications of Nethys technology. Their phase-shifting abilities could revolutionize construction and engineering. Their regeneration knowledge could advance medical science by centuries. Their energy conversion techniques could solve power problems across multiple worlds. "You're suggesting that my people could contribute to galactic civilization instead of simply conquering it?" Zixara asked. "Exactly," Dr. Tanaka replied enthusiastically. "Every species has unique gifts. Your people have survived and thrived for millennia. That represents an enormous wealth of knowledge and capability. Imagine what could be accomplished if that expertise was shared rather than used for domination. Ambassador Wright leaned forward. Commander, we'd like to propose something unprecedented, a formal alliance between humanity and the Nethys Empire. Not a surrender or submission, but a partnership between equals. Zixara felt her mind struggling to process this concept. Partnership? But my people are the galaxy's apex predators. We take what we need through strength. And that's worked for you so far, Chen acknowledged. But consider this. What if you could have everything you need without having to take it by force? What if other species wanted to share with you because they valued what you offered in return? The display changed to show potential collaborative projects. Joint space exploration missions where Nethys phase abilities would allow investigation of dangerous environments. Medical research combining human innovation with Nethys regeneration. Engineering projects that would benefit dozens of worlds. This is all theoretical, Zixara said, though she found herself fascinated by the possibilities. My people would not understand such concepts. One of the human children, a girl of about 10 years old, raised her hand. Can I ask a question? Zixara looked at the child with surprise. You wish to speak with me directly? The girl nodded bravely. My name is Lisa. I drew one of the pictures we sent you. I wanted to know, don't your people ever get tired of being scary? Don't you want to have friends sometimes? The simple honesty of the question hit Zixara harder than any weapon ever had. She knelt down to bring herself to the child's eye level, careful to move slowly and gently. Lisa, she said softly, my people have been scary for so long that we forgot. There might be other ways to live. But meeting humans has made me wonder what it would be like to have friends. Lisa smiled. Friends help each other and have fun together. They share things and learn from each other. It's much better than being scary all the time. As Zixara looked into the child's trusting eyes, she felt the last of her old worldview crumble away. This small human, who should have been terrified of her, instead offered friendship and understanding. She stood and addressed the entire room. I accept your proposal for an alliance, she announced. But I must warn you, this will not be easy. My people have known only conquest for centuries. Teaching them cooperation will be challenging. All the best changes are challenging, Dr. Martinez replied. But that's what makes them worthwhile. We're prepared to work with you on this transition, however long it takes. Captain Chen stepped forward. We'd like to propose a joint mission as our first collaborative effort. There's an unexplored region of space that could benefit from both human innovation and Nethys abilities. We could explore it together, as equals. Over the following hours, they planned what would become the first Nethys-human joint expedition. Zixara found herself excited by the prospect of exploration rather than conquest. The idea of discovering new things rather than destroying old ones appealed to something deep inside her that she had never acknowledged before. 6 months later, the joint expedition launched from Luna Station. The ship carried both human and Nethys crew members working side by side. Zixara served as co-commander alongside Captain Chen, a partnership that amazed observers throughout the galaxy. As their ship entered unexplored space, Zixara reflected on how much had changed. Her people were slowly learning new ways of interacting with other species. Some Nethys had joined human research projects. Others had begun teaching their abilities to allied scientists. Most importantly, they had discovered something that no amount of conquest had ever given them: purpose beyond dominance. The Galactic Council watched these developments with amazement. Species that had lived in terror of the Nethys for centuries began sending diplomatic missions to Earth, hoping to establish similar partnerships with humanity. But the most significant change was in Zixara herself. As she stood on the bridge of their joint ship, working alongside Captain Chen to navigate unknown stellar phenomena, she realized she had found something she never knew she was missing: She had found her place in a larger community, not as a conqueror, but as an explorer, teacher, and friend. When she addressed the Galactic Council for the final time as a representative of the old Nethys Empire, her words echoed across the galaxy. "For centuries, my people believed that strength came from being feared," she announced. "We were wrong. True strength comes from being understood, respected, and valued for who we are, not what we can destroy. Today, the Nethys Empire ends. In its place, we offer the Terran-Nethys Alliance, dedicated to exploration, cooperation, and the betterment of all galactic civilizations." As she spoke, Zixara looked out at the assembled representatives from hundreds of worlds. For the first time in galactic history, not one of them looked at her with fear. Instead, she saw respect, curiosity, and hope for the future they would all build together. She had once been deemed the galaxy's most feared species. Now she was something far more powerful, a bridge between worlds, proof that even the most unlikely beings could choose cooperation over conquest and understanding over fear. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would she.